Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the T.O.A podcast. I am your host, Onvermel. Greeted here today with my good brother, Zakta. Zakta, how goes the day?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Especially a little later today when the collection grows even more.
Yes. You're fortunate enough that you got to be picking up some new used Lego. That's an odd statement,
Yeah,
but
so
new to you.
new to me, old to them. One man's trash and another man's junk.
And it might be some good stuff, but
The potential of specifically a golden Nika.
potentially we're not
Potential.
holding our breath.
There's the potential. There is the arm, and where there's the arm, there might be a leg.
But that's not what we're going to be talking about.
No, it is not.
That's
just a nugget of information.
Today will be about Bionicle. So for those who, if you've been religiously following the podcast and remember every little detail, you might know that us T.O.A brothers, we have online webcomics of Lego.
Some more than others.
We kind of bring them up now and then, but we haven't gone really in depth at all really about it. Like
odd mentions.
Yeah,
and
more than
here.
But no, you're definitely more than others because let's be honest, I have one that's on like a very long hiatus right now.
We don't even really count yours on the list.
I added comics last year.
Really?
Yeah, because I added all the ones with like the sharks coming out of the little pond.
I knew you did some a little, but like a part of me feels like it was like more than a year ago, just because
it was about I think 4 months worth of comics last summer.
It was before I moved, so it was.
However, before that was like about a 5-year hiatus, so
yeah, something like that.
It's just on the back burner, but we all have webcomics, and what the next probably series of podcasts are actually going to be is talking about each one individually with their respective author. Now, so you're probably going to be seeing a lot of Zach in the next little while. I'm not going to lie. Maybe a fair bit, and for those lucky fans of How One, you'll probably get a few of him because he too has a few. I will not be interviewing myself on mine. That'll probably come in the later discussion.
I mean, there's multiple reasons for that. A, there's nothing to interview on, and
I
B,
can just talk to myself for a while.
Oh yeah, but you don't. That's been the whole point of us being here.
Now, we could have started with the original, the first one that did it, but because this is the Bionicle channel, I figured let's start with the one and only dedicated Bionicle webcomic, which is Bionicle Tales by, well, it actually is by Zakta. Like that's actually your
That's partially why my online persona has been Zakta. It was a Sith character's name that I made out of taking the letter or something out of Zaktan. I took the N out of Zaktan.
Yeah, it kind of just stuck with you. Despite the thing is though, the model I use for you is based on your self-mock. At least the self-mock of if I was a T.O.A, this is the mask I'd have, this is the weapon I'd have, this is the color let's be element I have. And I based, so technically that character, the T.O.A with the Kakama with an axe is Lasef.
Which is the name of the character, but not the name of the persona. It's confusing.
No. I mean, the thing is, X is just as confusing because that's technically T.O.A Hanatu, but it's X. Just don't look too deep. I'll explain. But comics, Bionicle Tales. Tell us, what is Bionicle Tales? Can you explain?
Well, other than a hot mess,
well,
it's like one massive running inside joke. I think that's the best way. And it originally started with like some later games you, me, and Ek played.
Yes.
And in my older ages, my way of capturing my childhood is to take pictures and make comics out of my Lego and retell stories or tell new stories with the Lego. So, I wanted to do a Bionicle story, so I was like, I'm going to do the one we played. Which started out with a very loose concept that makes no sense, but I'm stuck with it.
Well, those earlier ones, because, I would definitely say reading them, it was kind of nice because those last, hurrahs of actual getting out your toys and playing, probably older than we should have been, was not only the turning point from, it was basically kind of the start of actually mocking with Bionicles consistently and actually creating our own, stories and universes in Bionicle. And the nice thing about that is you basically have captured that moment in time, in comic form, which is...
It might not be the best capture. I feel like I may have rushed or dragged some parts on. But the first 3 seasons 3 years, but I call them seasons because there's a hiatus after every chapter.
Yeah, though that's where things get...
That's a chapter. The first 3 were very much one long continuous game we all played. And then the most recent one I put out was basically a continuation of the story, but also a bit of a mix from an older game we had sort of played that we sort of tried tying in I like to take ideas from the past and weave it into a coherent story.
See, you and me have both done that. However, you've actually put yours down to essentially, the phrase of you put yours down to paper. Like you put this, like I
Yeah.
want to incorporate the story, and I'm putting it down to paper, and I am doing it in a comic
Yeah.
format.
And then there's like my fourth and fifth season, which is not so much replaying a game as it is acting out and filming the concepts we had often talked about characters we had, like taking some inspiration from games years ago, but basically like this is how it would have played out if they came back, but we never really played full games with them.
Are those the ones that are out right
This is
now?
with the six. When the six came
Oh
out,
right, yes,
there
we
wasn't.
never did quite finish that.
There were some games that I weaved in there, but for the most part, it was This is we talked about a lot, specifically with one of the overlords, Brune, and how how his relationship revolved around everyone else's, and how I don't want to spoil anything, but how they all wind up in the end.
But the thing is, that was at the point where we were officially like not playing anymore, and but we still liked our stories and such.
No,
so we just enjoyed discussing.
We can't play. Our concept of playing now is sitting down while movies playing and discussing our Bionicle universes and characters.
You gotta also, at least have one in hand just to fiddle with, look, pose them, make them look cool on the table while you watch a movie and just discuss.
Half the joy of a Bionicle is literally just admiring your own work,
your own craft.
Posing like, how well does he pose? Oh, he poses nice. Ooh, look at this pose. And then you get a real nice pose. Like, I don't know if I ever want to change this pose, but I want to fiddle with him. So I'll
this
change
guy
it.
sits well.
You just sit. When it's nice when you pick up a Bionicle, you just plunk him down. You're like, oh, that's nice. Which has led me to the second part of Bionicle Tales.
Oh dear. Now this is gonna go.
The between chapters filler, which is usually just random Bionicle pictures that I've taken because I just have some random dialogue in my head, or it's like, this is a cool pose, and I try to capture it. And then I put some random dialogue in. Sometimes it's a movie quote, more often than not, it's just some weird blatant statement that may or may not make sense. Sometimes it's an inside joke. And I think it has earned my comic
the reputation.
At least two different sources. Webcomics, well, one is just worst webcomics on the internet. I don't know the link, but I dig enough, you find it. Or on TV Tropes, webcomics so bad they're good.
Yeah, like somehow this like the thing is like if you jump in between seasons when these ones are getting posted, yeah, it does not paint a good picture what you have. And if people don't have the patience to go through all of them, they're not gonna find them good for a while. But the fact that your comic has a reputation of some kind. As far as I'm aware, none of the other comics any of us have made it to like any list or reputation.
The only list our webcomics have made, other than the only list they've made has been a website listing off Lego webcomics. That is it.
Yeah, but
that hardly counts.
But the thing is, yours has a reputation.
Yes.
Whether it be good or bad, it
which
has a reputation.
led to a problem. I am proud of this poor reputation, and now I'm like, I was just making this for my own personal amusement, and if you were to read it now, you would assume it was made by probably a 12-year-old. And I stand by, especially the earlier stuff. But now I'm like, I want to tell stories. I want to be consistent, but at the same time, like, I don't want to ruin what that stupid charm that's apparently in there. I'm like, I don't want to try making it as bad as it allegedly is. But
I feel like it's just gonna end.
I don't want to go to my like. I want to just keep doing it for my fun, but a part of me is like, now I feel like I have to make it intentionally cheesy as possible.
Well, when you try to make stuff intentional, that's where things don't go away. But
yeah.
But no, it's definitely funny just how of all the ones that have managed to get a reputation, it's the one that's like the most the most niche is Bionicle. Like you have ones about like just generic Lego stuff that have much larger subscriber counts. But as far as where your main one, Randomly Assembled, doesn't really have any.
Yeah, the thing with Bionicle Tales is it is my second oldest, and one of the I think fourth oldest amongst all of us siblings, third oldest on the hosting website, just because how one put his on afterwards.
Yeah.
But fifth oldest doesn't count those like two comics the Lost T.O.A. did.
Well, we're not gonna count those.
But the thing with Bionicle Tales was, unlike my main comic, it didn't post daily or even consistently. It was when I didn't have a chapter going on, it posted Sundays. And then when I have a chapter going on, it posts Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Yeah.
So where I had a main comic which started out every 3 days, moved up to every 2 days, and then moved up to 1 day every day. This one made only at most 3 posts a week, which, and given that it was Bionicle and very niche and very poor. Granted, that says it didn't take much for people to realize this is awful.
Well, also, let's be honest. Bionicles do not lend themselves to picture taking as much as minifigs because they're 10 times the size.
Yeah,
so getting backdrops that isn't your couch on a rug. I was
definitely going to get to that. It's with a minifig, you can have a standard 32 stud by 32 stud base plate. You can put up a wall that's 8 studs high. And if you don't care about being fancy, that's really all you need. And you don't even need to make it out of brick. You could just put a sheet of white paper behind you and you have a consistent backdrop. But for a Bionicle, which stands on average like 6 to 9 inches tall, and you have multiple of them gathered together with bigger ones around, the best backdrops I had were the old place I was renting's backyard.
And those ones actually worked pretty well for the most part.
They were sharp images. It looked nice. Bionicles work well in a natural environment. Especially when you think the Bionicle's mechanical and then the natural, so the plastic substance mechanical. The problem is, we live in Canada. And while you can't have winter scenes, for about a month. You only get about half the year where it's reasonable picture taking weather, unless you want them in the winter. And if you want winter pictures, you will find, if you look through carefully, that at one point where something is frozen, over the next few pages, it goes to very green just because of the time it took between each picture. Yeah, I would say that's one of the most noticeable things is when you go from like some of the early, I think there was one season where you were making them outside, but then you had to do them inside, and it's like, I think it was at the 6 you had that with, whether they started out outside. Yeah, no, it was the 5th chapter season. All the pictures were pretty much outside, where they needed to be outside, which was great, because visually, they were really big, they were like my biggest, tallest Bionicles that I've ever made, so they really needed a natural backdrop, and even then, you could still see like a truck or car in the background or the fence, just because you're looking straight on, not down. There's only so much you can do. But then the next chapter was all done inside with very basic backdrop of a big blue sheet that probably you could still see the edges too. Everyone was crammed together in screen, but I was going for something I could consistently do, and then I was trying something new for the one season I'm currently working on. I had a big screen TV at my old place, so I set up a platform in front of it, set up an image on the back, and that would be my backdrop. So at least it'd be more stylized. You get the feel of where they are better. But then I moved in with you, and you do not have a big screen TV. No, not big enough to put a few Bionicles. The size I think we used to have. Yeah, so I could put maybe 2 Bionicles in front of it, and it would work. You'd probably still see edges. So I had to resort to my old standby of just plank them on the floor in the most blank area you can find, and just go with the simple. Don't really care what you're looking at, just as long as the characters aren't in a jumbled mess. I will admit this though, the chapter storyline where we were focused on the Hero Factory as well with the other Bonker characters, that one you actually managed to get the backdrops and stuff work very well without really going like that. Oh, look, a couch. And I think that's because in the case of Hero Factory, it's in a metropolis setting more so, where a blank wall and wood or pillar, it worked just a little bit better. It felt natural because we're in a more modern setting. So when your Bionicles, which takes place, there are cities, but when you want wilderness, you want wilderness. Whereas in Hero Factory, you want metrocity. I'm trying to think of the word, but you want metropolises. You want technology. So having more technological stuff around you makes more sense. It does, but I'm like to say, the pictures in either way just turned out. I think you managed to basically use an apartment living room pretty well with that. I was actually thinking just earlier today that Bionicle Tales feels like not so much a retelling of the Bionicle story, and not so much a continuation, but it's like if you were to take out everything after the Metro Nui, take out the Mask of Life story arc. Yeah. This is what would have happened, in my head, what would have happened with Bionicle, because rather than going to Voi Nui, they were all in Metro Nui rebuilding, everything's there, and I don't really see it as a giant robot so much, so... That's actually a really good way of looking at it. Because none of that story plot makes sense, and I don't think I brought the Mari in at all, and they may have been there the first season, I kind of literally forgot about them. But also they were just kind of there just because they were there with our games. Well, even when we played those games back in the day, we had them already there, and then we forgot about them. No, they were all faced. All of them were faced. Exactly. Them and the T.O.A.
at that point, it was all about our made-up T.O.A.
Yeah.
That was the exciting parts. It is interesting though. Out of well, specifically the three of us, like Howland's only kind of gone back into Bonker recently. So out of
Yeah.
like the three of us, you, myself, and Eck, over the years, you're the one who's actually fully made a Bonker webcomic. Like Eck does have Bonker show up in his webcomics a
Yeah.
couple times. Even mine had Pohatu make a cameo in one comic, the one time. So even I got Bonkers to sneak in there a little bit, but again, it's like you're the one who's actually made a Bonker
Given
webcomic.
that I have, given randomly assembled in the title,
even then,
whatever, the title alone says it can be whatever. It's randomly assembled. Anything can go on there. The fact that I still gave Bionicles their own webcomic just says how much I wanted to do with these and how much I was dedicated to at least the idea, because I do have a general idea of where I'm going. No definitive end, but I do see it as something as, one of these days I'm probably just going to be like, I'm done. Not that I don't want to continue. It's not that I don't have more ideas. It's just I don't have the
that
time.
was actually going to be my next question: is how long do you think it's going to go on for?
Well, I know I'm going to finish the chapter I'm currently on, and because of plot ideas, I do want to go into the next one because spoilers. I do want to bring in the Shadow Borok.
Ah, yes, the Shadow
And because of
Borok.
a certain crossover that I'll be posting in about 3 to 4 years, I want that to tie in to. It will only make sense if I tie it into next chapter, but I need to get through this one first, which honestly might not have any major climax, so it'll probably be only like I'm probably close to halfway, if not a little more through. So,
But you see a foreseeable end to this comic, unlike something like Grano.
I've already made the final comic for this. When I'm basically ready to put in the towel, I have used up all my buffer. I'd be like, and this is the end. I will say this though, because of how I set it up with the concept of I make a chapter, I post it, and then I don't post the next one until I make the next one. It is technically more in line to be continued, whereas in other webcomics, since I have a regular schedule and they don't stop unless there's something in my life interferes with the update. But if they stop, they're on a hiatus for who knows how long. But Bionicle Tales will take hiatuses every chapter.
But it also makes Bionicle Tales make it feel like you can actually make an official end a lot easier. It's like
yes, there's cutoff points.
It's not like things are going to be cliffhangers.
I do know with Bionicle Tales though that just on the thought of, like I was saying, that this one I'm working on might not have any like big battle or anything. I feel like every second for the first 5 was like the first 2 was split. The third one was like the climax of the first 2 seasons. And then we had the 6th story arc, which started with more introduction and whatnot. And then it was the season after that really finished everything off. And then we're having this. Now I'm on season 6. It's introducing characters, going with a new idea. Not so much big battle, but trying to drive wedges and stuff and just trying to reunite characters. But I don't think there's going to be a big battle. But then the next one, I imagine there's going to be a lot more action just because... I also can't think of what to do. I'm like, this is going to go on a long time, and I don't actually know what I'm building up to here. I just have a concept I'm working with, and I like it, and it's like, these people are reuniting. This person's kind of chaos. There's not really anyone to cause chaos with. It's just going to be more of a filler.
I'll definitely admit there's a part of me that's always wanted to make a Bonk webcomic because as you other brothers have unfortunately had to listen to is I have quite an extensive story and lore to my stuff that I haven't found a way to really put it down. I'm like, okay, in fairness, I have written some stories now that I'm starting to write them down, but I still want a visual media because I'm like, I have all these models. I may as well use them for something rather than just sitting in my Bionicle closet.
This has been basically my main driving force for webcomics and also my main motivation or reasoning to buy something that I've wanted for years or just wanted now that I don't have a lot of space for. Oh, I have one comic idea for this. I'm going to go buy this set now.
I mean, it's better than just saying, I want this. It's mine now. It sits on a shelf.
I mean, I want to say that's what I've been doing.
You at least have, like, another use for them.
Yeah, I want to say that's what I've been doing, but really, all the Lego I bought recently, which would be...
Well, they're all...
Mystic Mountain Time Lab and 4 large adventure sets. I all have very specific comic uses for them, so... Yeah, they've all been quote-unquote justified purchases.
And to be honest, I feel like you'll end up using them more times after that. Either for one-off
comics. The adventure ones... I foresee appearing in things like tournaments in the crossover, which we'll talk at another day.
Yes,
But
yes.
Mystic Mountain Time Lab all depends on whether or not I do time-related stories. I see it appearing randomly assembled because I have a theme that has Dr. Cyber in it, but I'm definitely getting it very specifically for like the opening few comics of a story I want to do on another.
I got a question.
All
If
right.
by chance you ended up getting, like, let's say, System Bionicle sets, would you be like, all right, I got to make some comics around these guys for Bionicle Tales?
Well, there's got to be some one-off panels randomly thrown in between seasons.
Because I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, the picture taking would be so much easier, but they still be Bionicle, and I'm like, would they be randomly assembled Bionicle because they're minifigs, or would they be Bionicle Tales one-off?
Randomly
Bionicle?
assembled has full-size Bionicles. It doesn't matter. If it's a Bionicle, it fits in Bionicle Tales. The thing is, you should be asking those why I haven't already made a comic since I have I've had a couple for a while. And about a year ago, I ordered like all the Paraka and
Oh right, yeah,
or
you
most
did.
of.
Kind of forgot that you did that.
Yeah, I forgot I did that too.
Well, it's because like me is like
It was
I like
just about when I was moving here, so all the stuff just kind of got thrown into a pile, and
like I always knew that you had like Zactan Kongu and like
yeah, but I
Mattel
ordered
and
a
whatnot.
second Zactan and a second Kongu, I think, just for the green arms because they were in the site I was ordering from, and they were relatively cheap, and I wanted green arms for fingers.
I can
But there was
relate.
also like a Hakan, Thok, and Redax, so I picked
Very
them
important
up.
stuff. Very
I
important.
actually don't think I got a Vezok, and I know I got a Jala because I was looking at it and a Huki. No, I know I got a
Jal
Huki
is the only one of the T.O.A team I'm actually missing.
because I was looking at the Huki and like, boy, has this guy got a chin.
He does have a chin. He's got a big ass chin on that fucking face.
But I definitely will have to be at some point either just some random. It would make a good um, April Fool's comic, I think.
Just to have minifig forms.
Yeah.
That would actually be pretty amusing. But actually, one other thing about Bionicle Tales, which has actually been kind of nice, is because Ek and I have made a couple Bionicle comics, but didn't have any real place to put them. You're basically like, well, you can always have a guest comic because I had the How Report and he had the potato related one.
I'm pretty sure.
I think he said two.
Okay, the potato specifically one. Ek made and gave to me because he had the idea. But I specifically requested, if you want to make a guest comic or two, I was asking for them. I'm still waiting for one from How 1, but I think there's a possibility. Though if I get one from How, it won't be a guest comic, it'll be like a short mini story.
Yeah, probably.
He said so himself.
He does word. He has a little bit wordy. So yeah, I've always wanted to do like more of the How Report ones, but I'm like
Lazy.
The funny thing is, I could easily follow up because they literally. The original one was really about basically models getting upgraded. That's literally what Onvermel was predicting, and one of them he predicted was like Vilmac. And I'm like, hey.
And if you actually read the comics, when the Six first appear at the end of a season, they were the Six, but then the start of the next season, they were instantly larger because over between seasons I had actually modified them because I just wanted to improve them, make them larger, and just it's Lego. I wanted to build, I wanted to make them better, so they actually got bigger.
I don't look even in movies and TV shows. They always update the props in the next season.
I should have mentioned it in there or added some dialogue saying that like they were in stasis so long, but the fresh air and all that, they regained their strength and became the mighty warlords that they were.
I doubt most people would even notice.
Yeah, they only had one appearance and there's a gap.
But I guess this also brings up the questions a little bit. I was kind of wondering earlier was do you ever look back at something and kind of wish you'd done it differently or like wish it had turned out better? Because for me, I always personally think that, at least from my perspective, I think the Titan category is one thing that you kind of wish it turned out better.
It has been a major. It never felt like I quite captured it right, but then again, knowing how to start it was one thing. And honestly, the Titan category is like the life of the three of us. Just having the
it's probably the most inside joke
I
you
remember
can get.
being together with you and Ak and being just talking about like, oh, that would be a great joke. But then then when I go to take pictures, I'm like, I can't remember anything that I was what was I wanting to have so much fun? There were a few good ones in there I really like, but
definitely some of them were.
Let's also be honest. There's technically a lot of characters, so trying to give a lot of them spotlights so you can get like pick up on quote unquote running gates like Hydraxon. Hydraxon is a quiet guy who just technically doesn't even sip. Just sits there with both hands on his mug, quietly ignoring everyone. There's comedic gold there, but some comedy works better when you sort of build up like this is him, this is him, this is still him. But when you only get you get his introduction and then you get Rudaka swooning over him, and I feel like you need a bit of another comic or two, but another one or two just to get used to him. And like Liwa with his Kool-Aid, he I feel like you could have more fun with that. But again, I feel like there was a lack of a lot of build up. Like maybe proper introduction, like Leela coming in, going straight down, Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid.
Make it green.
Make it green. No, make it blue.
I definitely like, even when I always read them, like I always feel like they could have been done better. But I can tell you this, I couldn't tell you how.
Exactly. We couldn't tell you how
This
to
like
make
there's
it
a
better.
part of like when we did the whole time category as like in our teens compared to how it was in the comics. Like there's something that just isn't captured. But the thing is,
I mean-
I think part of it was the running jokes. Because let's be honest, every time we set them up in the bar scene, we basically just say the same things.
I mean,
the
as
same
I
jokes.
think we established back when we were talking about this the other week was Titan category is more of like a sit down fiddle, talk about the characters and how they react. But when you actually try to sit down and have a game,
It doesn't
the
work.
majority of the game is setting up. Once you get to the game's probably over in
Honestly,
like 10 minutes.
One comic that I kind of feel like should have been done was, someone's like, I don't know, one of the people's checking up on like the vehicles because like they've heard rummaging. He's like, sounds like a burglar's in here, and they like go to Exalted, open up and just like pick out a new broom, like, oh, let me go, let me go. He's like, this was making the ruckus. He's like, let me go, let me go. I feel like for something like Botar's big and.
I do know I had one comic with New Prue tinkering with Exela T9, and I think claiming that Lewa was drunk or sleeping so he won't
I
notice.
to look
but
back through see which ones I can get. 'Cause
I
that's a
haven't
long
looked
time
back
ago.
on like the first 2 seasons in a long time, but I do
Pretty
know
much
if I were to look
none
back.
of the comics I have reread. I think Android Files I've gone through twice. At one point I reread it, and Crossword Championship. I've reread the Crossword Championships like the first season or first year several times, just because. First off, I like laughing at my own jokes, and second, I think that was just generally funny for everyone.
There were definitely some issues, like some of the, like my photos were not good, or we were still getting our footing, so some of the tasks were kind of rough around the edges. But we've definitely.
Actually,
this is a conversation for another time.
I was actually just going to say the funny thing actually about Crossword Championship is one of the seasons is essentially was a almost a spin-off
of
of
Bionicle
Tales because I mean in Bionicle Tales, if I'm correct, one of the seasons that we played that was turned into a season was Lesvik training the T.O.A. I don't think you went deep into the training.
So yeah. Back in our earlier days, it kind of was building up to the main games we played that my webcomics are based off of, and sort of leaning into we're getting too old for games. Where when we were in the outdoor phase, where we like to bring our Bionicles outdoors, and Lesvik was a newer Bionicle, and he was an old ancient Bionicle, and we like to, we made him an old green grouch who was like hell bent on training you up. But we're in the age also where everyone's like basically incompetent and foolhardy.
Everyone was incompetent.
So, we have Lesvik like that, and that's been Lesvik's personality despite canon ever since. And so when I wanted to do, I was like, I like Bionicles. No one's doing anything this year. I'm going to do a Bionicle tournament because, like, why not? I have some ideas. And so naturally, Lesvik's the leader. But rather than being like a tournament of like who's the best of the universe, like, no, he's took the worst of the worst to whip them into shape. And, he's awarding them points to give them incentive to do better.
Needless to say, they did not do so good.
I'm pretty sure he didn't even acknowledge a winner. I tallied up I purposely did not keep tabs on who was winning. I would keep mark of score, but I didn't tally it up to the end because if you know who's winning, you might bias towards someone else.
That is true.
We have a bad knack for that. So, at the end, I tallied it up. I figured out who won. I acknowledged who technically won, but in story, it was like, and you all just plumb fail.
Yeah. So, like, nothing. So, I think we're probably going to be closing up here in just a moment. But one last question is, do you have any, like, real future ambitions for Bonker Tales? That's something, like, you still want to do? Like, I don't know, like, maybe, like, you want to retell the first year story? Or, like, is there any, like, stories that you still want to do before you're done?
I've got a few answers for that. For starters, I have been slowly working on, mostly hiatus on it right now because of other projects, but I want to take all the the Bionicle movies, break them down to pictures and add dialogue, and basically throw in my own dialogue for them. I've got a few comics to The Mask of Light so far.
So basically Darth and Droids, but for
yes,
Bionicle. For those who know what that is.
I wasn't going to say that because I wasn't going to assume anyone knew, but...
And just, Zach, and most of the people here don't know a lot of what we're talking about, so I know.
This is true.
But, gotta give due diligence.
But one thing I do want to do more frequently that I did this December was I made a short, like, 6-comic story, kind of following up on my last season, but it was just a little side thing I wanted to show that was like, oh, this make a nice little thing, and December was a good time to put it up since my previous chapter had already ended. So the between chapters, I would like to have little short seasons at some point, hopefully in like the December month, to be like my Christmas special now.
Parts of stories that connect with others but aren't worth
Parts
a full.
or no, like the next one I want to do will involve the cave with characters that are part of the story and would technically answer questions that no one would have thought or asked if I don't bring it up.
Yes.
But then there's other ones that'll probably have absolutely no pertaining to anything, just for the sake of I have characters who I don't know how to work in here, but there's little stories I want, like Stelvix and Chains. I want to do a story with Stelvix and Chains, but that's not a full chapter thing, and it's also like they aren't tied to any of my other things. So
they really aren't.
So trying to work them into a story is really hard. So just give them their own little side story.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I definitely look forward to that one specifically. Like I said, I have a bit more invested interest.
So you're looking forward to the I have a questions.
While Borax, when he shows up,
It'll be the same two panels every time, but he'll have a new stupid question every time.
But no, this has been kind of fun, just reflecting on so bad it's good, so, as people say.
There is no mask reflecting, you doofus.
Mask of reflecting. I know. If I polished one pretty shiny, I could. Well, this has been fun, and thanks for having you. If anybody's curious about learning about our podcast, stay tuned for the next upcoming. Are interested about not our podcast, our webcomics. Several next upcoming ones are probably all going to be related to the different webcomics. So, if you guys are interested, please stay tuned and consider subscribing. I don't say this very often, but please. My subscriber count.
It would help his ego
Look at this way.
so
My
much.
subscriber count was always higher than the amount of podcasts I had. Not anymore. The podcasts have officially outnumbered my subscribers.
The subscribers are still higher than view counts mostly.
Yes. that's very well, depending on some videos. So yes, this has been the T.O.A. podcast. I have been your host Onvermel, and we are retiring from the night.